Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. In the previous lectures, we have come to understand that there are several things that are from India and they were used in Arabia. However, there are some words that are actually non-Arabic words but are used in Arabic language. And they're used in Arabic language to an extent where they are actually found in Quran as well. And these words have their basis in the land that we now know by the name of India, or back in those days it was Sindh or Hind. In the modern day it would be considered Pakistan and India region. Well, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, they used some Indian products like musk, which is mushk, or oud, or kafur. Similarly, some spices like filfil, qurunful, which is clove, and zanjabil, which is dried ginger. And similarly, clothes from India or Sindh region were used extensively in Arabia. Also, long pieces of cloth, they were also being used in Arabian culture. Similarly, swords made in India, or Indian swords, were very famous in Arabia. So were the spears. Also, there were some elements that were used in Arabian medicine. They were also imported from India. Similarly, wood, as we talked about when Abraha was building a very big temple in Yemen, he used wood from India. And it is also assumed by some historians that he might have used the wood carvers from India as well. So for a very long time, people from India or Sindh or Hind region and the people in Arabia, they had very close ties. And since there was a huge majority of pagans in Hind-Sindh region, and also majority of the Arabs were also pagans, that's why cultural relationships are also to be found. Also notice that there are certain words in languages that we don't know how they started and where they started from, but they're common across the board. For example, there are words like qist, which is an installment. It's also called in Arabic kusht or kist. And a version of that is used in Hindi, which is called the cut. Similarly, in Greek, the word was qarstus. In Aramaic, the word was qoshta. In Persian or Farsi, it is kushta. So there are words that have same root and they're used in different languages. Similarly, there's a word in Arabic called zanjabil, which has its extract from a Hindi variant of zanjabira. And in Aramaic, it is called zankabil. And in Farsi, it is called shankwez. And in English, it's called ginger, from zinjabil, ginger. Similarly, there are other words that have linguistic similarities. So that's why Imam Ibn Jarir Tabari said, and Imam Suyuti rahimahullah reported this in Al-Itqan. وقال ابن جرير, and Ibn Jurayr said that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu and other people من تفسير ألفاظ من القرآن أنها بالفارسية والحبشية والنبطية أو نحو ذلك. And he said that there are some words in the Quran that in the tafsir of those words, we have found that those words have their basis either in Farsi or the languages of Ethiopia, Habashi, or even in the Nabatean. The Nabatean language is basically, Nabatiya is basically the language that was spoken in Nabatean kingdom, and that was a variant of Aramaic. And Aramaic, which was heavily influenced by Arabic, was that variant that was spoken in the Nabatean kingdom. So even in that language, there are certain words that have traveled and come into Arabic and have become part of the Arabic language. So that's why فيها توارد اللغات, as it has come in the dictionaries. So فتكلمت بها العرب والفرس والحبشية بلفظ واحد. So it is the same word that comes in Arabic, in Persian, and in the language of Habasha people. So that's why you find a lot of similarities. And also in the past, I've shared with you words of this nature. So in Quran also, there are certain words that have their basis in the India and the Sindh region, the Hind and the Sindh region, and have made their way into Arabic. For example, the word kafur. Similarly, the word misk, which is mushk, or mushka in Sanskrit, or the word zanjabil. So, for example, the word zanjabil, which has its Hindi variant of zanjabira, and another one is misk, which is mushka in Hindi, and it's also called mushk in some of the other languages, like, for example, Urdu. And similarly, the word kafur, which in Hindi is kapur. And over the period of time, these words were adapted into Arabic with some variant or variation of those words. So let's look at where in the Quran these words appear. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ يَشْرَبُونَ مِنْ كَأْسٍ كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا كَافُورًا. The people in the Jannah, al-Abrar, they will drink from, the drink will have a flavor of kafur in it. The camphor, it would have a flavor of camphor in it. So that word kafur is actually being used here, which is borrowed from Hind Sindh region into the Arabic language, and has also come in the Quran because the word is quite common in Arabic linguistic. Similarly, in another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُسْقَوْنَ فِيهَا كَأْسًا كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا زَنْجَبِيلًا. And in the heaven, in the Jannah, they will be offered in a cup to drink a liquid, and that liquid would have a little bit of tint of zanjabil, which is dried ginger. Similarly, in another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُسْقَوْنَ مِنْ رَحِيقٍ مَخْتُومٍ خِتَامُهُ مِسْكٍ. And they will be offered to drink a very pure drink. And that drink will be so pure that it would be sealed. The bottle will be, the container will be sealed. And that seal will be the seal of mushk, or the misk, or the mushka. That when it would be opened, you could smell the musk. You could smell the misk. So, or musk, as we say in English. So, there are some references in the Quran about these items that were borrowed and they were actually used as commodities in the Arabian culture. In hadith in particular, we do not find much evidences of such words. However, remember I told you that the Zut and the Asabira came to Ali radiallahu anhu and they spoke to him and they showed their alliance that and their agreement that they agree on the caliphate of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. So some historians said that these people still were not they were not familiar with Arabic as a language because they mainly used to live in the Persian influence area and were bilingual, or will speak Persian as well as Hindi or whatever their language was, or Sanskrit, but they were not fluent in Arabic. So some companions also understood Hindi language. So some people are of the view that the Zut or the Jat and the Asabira came and spoke to Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu in their native language. And they said that we are with you in this matter of khilafah and the leadership. So again, there are a lot of things that we don't know about in detail, but we know that these have made their way into the Arabic culture. Also, in the books of hadith, we find that the Prophet ﷺ loved smell, like a nice smell. Like perfumes and itar and those of the. So he would highly encourage companions to use those as well. And we have so many evidences when you start going into the books of hadith. Similarly, we have references of oud and kafur found as well, that Prophet ﷺ would use these words, and the companions would use these kind of things in their household commodities. Also, the clove, misk and oud, their combination, there used to be a necklace that would be made from the combination of these. And women and kids used to wear it around their necks not for the sake of beauty, but for the sake of fragrance. So what they would do is they would take qurunful, which is the clove, and oud, and they will take misk, and what they would do is they would put it in a thread. So what they would do is they will put the clove in water so that it becomes a little bit softer, and they would put it in a thread, and then they would also put a small pieces of oud wood, because it's and then they would add other things to it, and it would be a longer thread that they would put around their necks. And there is a reference of that also found that Hassan radiallahu anhu, the grandson of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also wore it as a child. Abi Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates this, that once Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was returning back from the souk of Qaynuqa. There was a souk, means a marketplace of the Jewish people, and as he was returning, he went past the house of Fatima radiallahu anha, and he inquired about Hassan radiallahu anhu, and Hassan radiallahu anhu did not come out right away. It took him some time to come out. So the companion said that we understood that Hassan radiallahu anhu might be taking a bath or a shower, and after that he must be wearing this special necklace. This special necklace, since it used to make a little bit of sound when all of these solid entities would rub against each other, so Arabs used to call it sikhab. So they said that we assumed that at this point, لأنه تغسله وتلبسه سخابا, that at this time he might be taking a bath or a shower, and after that he must be wearing the sikhab. So it is quite common, and also we learn about that the zanjabil gift came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there are several evidences in that regard, as we find in the books of hadith, and also the wood, the Hindi wood, as we have talked about that as well, was being used. In fact, a little bench that was prepared for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by Saad ibn Zarara radiallahu anhu, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, the feet of that bench were also prepared from a wood that was imported from India. And Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to use this bench a lot. Even sometimes he would sleep on it as well. And Sayyidina As'ad ibn Zarara radiallahu ta'ala anhu prepared this with the teak wood that is imported from India. And this particular bench was prepared for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon his arrival in Medina. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was common in Quraysh that they would use these kind of bench-like beds, and it was quite customary in Makkah to do that. But in Medina, people didn't have this custom. So Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu that, do you have those kind of benches that we use in Makkah? So Abu Ayyub Ansari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said that, unfortunately, I don't. And when As'ad ibn Zarara radiyallahu ta'ala anhu heard about it, then As'ad ibn Zarara made this kind of a bed for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or a bench. So وَقَوَائِمُهُ سَاج, so its feet were made from the teak wood, and مَرْمُولٌ بِخَزَمٍ, and the rope that was tied in between was made from khazam. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anhu reports it that when my house was prepared, this bed moved into my house, and this is where Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to sleep. And even when he's not sleeping, he used to sit on this, or would lay down and take rest on it. And then when Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, his body was placed on this particular bed. And on this bed, it was Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's funeral prayers were also prayed on this exact same bed. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's funeral prayers were very different from the funeral prayers of anybody else. Inshallah, that's not our topic for today, but inshallah, when we get a chance, we'll talk about that as well. And after the passing away of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people of Medina, whenever somebody would pass away, they would take this very bench, and they will lay their loved ones who have passed away on this bench. And then they would carry them all the way to the graveyard on this bench. And on this bench, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, and many other people's funerals were carried on this particular bed or bench. And the main reason of using this for the sake of barakah. Even among the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, Zainab radiallahu anha, she gave the instructions that her body should also be carried all the way to the graveyard on this very bench. You might have heard about a name called Marwan ibn al-Hakam. During his time when he became the governor of Medina, he stopped people from using this bench. And he only allowed the people with honor and the people who were rich or the people who were special. They were the only one who were allowed that their dead body could be taken to the graveyard on this bench. So for common men, other bench was prepared. And later on, Abdullah ibn Ishaq purchased this bench from the officials, and he paid 4,000 dirham for it. And even 200 years plus after the passing away of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and talking about in 233 Hijrah, when a very famous muhaddith by the name of Yahya ibn Ma'in rahimahullah, when he passed away in Medina, it was this very bench on which he was also given the ghusl or before he was buried. Subhanallah. And during the time of an Umayyad king, Walid bin Abdul Malik, he put brick and stone pillars, not brick, stone pillars in Masjid al-Haram, and then for the rooftop he used the teak wood, which was imported from India. So even in the construction of Masjid al-Haram, teak wood from India was used. And he was not the first one who did this. Uthman radiallahu anhu, in the 30th Hijrah, when he was working on the expansion of Masjid al-Nabwi, he used the teak wood as a roof for the Masjid al-Nabwi as well. So in the 96th Hijrah, when Walid bin Abdul Malik, he worked on the expansion of Masjid al-Nabwi, he too used the teak wood in the expansion of Masjid al-Nabwi. The reason I'm going into all of these details is for your knowledge. Also, we are learning about the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we are also learning about the commodities from Al-Hind and Sind that were used in the Arabian Peninsula and how much familiar the people of Arabia were with these commodities. Similarly, we talk about the spears from Hind. So they would transport those through the ships from Hind all the way to the Arabia, and they would be received at a place called Al-Khat. So they will transport bamboo sticks all the way from India to Khat, and from there it would just be taken to the next step. And where is exactly is Khat? If we ask Imam al-Lughat Jawhari, he says that Khat is one of the place in Yamama. And the Khatti, the spears of Khat are basically associated with this place for that very reason. This is not where the wood of the spears was farmed. Rather, it was imported from India at this place. And then it was completed over here. So this was a place where the raw material would come and they would assemble it together to be used by the Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula. Very similarly, Indian swords were also very famous in Arabia. And you will find that references of those in the poems written by the Arab poets in the Jahiliyyah. And you will also find a lot of evidences on that. Even Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the people of Banu Qaynuqa were defeated after the battle of Banu Qaynuqa, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam received 3 swords. And one of the 3 swords was actually made from an iron that was imported from India, or actually the swords were made in India and the swords were imported to in Arabia, and there was usually be called the Sayf Qal'iyan, and this Sayf Qal'iyan were actually from India. And the other 2 swords had the names. One of the Sayf, or one of the swords, would call Batara, and another Sayf or the sword would be called Al-Hataf. Also, the clothing industry of Hind and Sindh used to send a lot of clothes in the markets of Yemen, from where they would be distributed in all over Arabia. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha also wore clothes that were made in Sindh. In Lisan al-Arab, we find that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was once seen wearing clothes that were made in Sindh. And it was quite evident just by looking at them that they probably were prepared in Sindh because of the nature of the clothes and the prints on the cloth. And people in Arabia would commonly call them the clothes from Yemen, but typically these clothes were not prepared in Yemen, but were rather imported in Yemen from India. And in Sindh and Hind, they used to prepare the special kind of very soft cotton-based clothes. When you touch them, you would feel like as if you're touching a velvet. And even Prophet ﷺ and several of his companions have used clothes that were imported into Arabia from Hind. Or the raw material was imported from Hind and the rest of the goods were prepared in Arabia and then was distributed or sold in Arabian Peninsula. So sometimes these clothes will be prepared in Yemen or Suhar or Najran, and then they would be sold by like the names of Burud Yamaniya, but actually the raw material was imported. Or Hilla Sahuliya, which was basically 2 pieces of cloth, unstitched cloth that would be worn. Or Athwab Najraniya. These are some of the names that were commonly used. Also in Tabqat ibn Saad, we find that the comb of the Prophet ﷺ was made from elephant teeth. So that itself is evident that because it's either imported or what probably might have been from Yemen or might have been imported from India or might have been from Africa too. So it could be either of the places. But a lot of the historians have gone to this direction that was imported from Hind. And some historians have said that it is quite possible that that comb might have been from Zenj. So it could be the comb from Aj Zenji, or it could be Aj Hindi. We cannot say for sure where exactly it originated from. So anyway, I guess I've given you a lot of details about the commodities that were originally from India or Sindh and that were used in Arabia, and also gave you some of the words that are originating from the Indian subcontinent region and have made their way into the Arabian culture and even became part of Arabic language and have made their way into Quran as well. Well, inshallah, talk to you next time with more details about other things. Till next time, assalamu alaikum.